Welcome to this explainer. Let's talk about something incredibly relatable, but honestly a little bit awkward. It's that exact moment your birthday rolls around. You wake up, you read the text, you say all the right thank yous, but deep down, you literally feel nothing. You're not sad, you're not secretly bitter, you're definitely not trying to be edgy or put on a performance. You are just quietly unbothered. It's just another day to you, even though it seems like a massive deal to everyone else. And if you've been there, you know the weirdest part isn't actually how you feel, it's having to explain yourself. Because the second you mention you don't care about your birthday, people instantly think you're traumatized, right? They treat it like a huge red flag. So you end up doing this awkward dance, nodding and insisting, really, I'm totally fine, to friends who, let's be real, they don't buy it. They genuinely think you just need a bigger surprise party to fix whatever is broken inside you.
Well, let's dive right into this, because spoiler alert, absolutely nothing is broken. In this explainer, we're going to dig into the deeply fascinating and honestly quite beautiful psychology behind why you might just not care about your birthday. The actual mechanics inside your brain here, way more interesting than you'd think.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the birthday indifference, and ask a really basic question. What is a birthday, really?
To figure this out, we have to strip away the cake, the balloons, and the social pressure. Psychologically speaking, a birthday is a cultural ritual. And rituals have a specific job to do. They act like a structured permission slip for the people around you to feel connected. It's a culturally approved excuse for people to finally say all those nice, affectionate things they completely ignore the other 364 days of the year. So, in reality, a birthday is actually collectively significant for them, not necessarily for you, the person who was actually born.
So here's the crucial takeaway. When you're feeling indifferent, you're not rejecting your friends or trying to ruin the vibe. You're just unconsciously opting out of a deeply uncomfortable role. It's the role of being the main character, the center of attention for a full 24 hours. For some of us, being thrust into that spotlight just feels completely unnatural, and it's almost impossible to explain that to people without sounding like an ungrateful Grinch. Moving right along to Section 2, let's look at identity consistency and external validation, or what we can call the internal anchor. This is where we see a massive flip between what society assumes and what psychology actually tells us. Society assumes that if you dodge your birthday, you must have low self-esteem, like you just don't feel worthy of being celebrated. But the reality is often the exact opposite. Psychologists talk about this concept called identity consistency. Basically, if you have a really solid, internally grounded sense of who you are, your self-image just doesn't crave that external validation. You're already comfortable with your own existence. You literally don't need a designated annual day of applause to prove to yourself that you matter.
Let's jump into Section 3, childhood pathways and where it all begins. Because, as always with psychology, we've got to look back at how we grew up. Our emotional connection to the specific date on the calendar usually shifts really early on, and it generally happens in one of two ways. Pathway 1 is the inconsistent birthday. Maybe your birthdays were ignored, or worse, used as emotional leverage by your parents. Your brain learned pretty quickly that this date doesn't bring joy, so it just permanently muted those feelings. Then there's Pathway 2, the mandatory performance. This is where your birthdays were heavily celebrated, but you were forced to act thrilled. The intense pressure to put on a show creates this quiet, stubborn resistance to the massive gap between what you're told to feel and what you actually feel inside. And you know what happens when that friction, that exhausting gap between expectation and reality, happens year after year? Your brain adapts. It's smart. It figures out that the hype around this day never actually pays off. And once a brain learns that, it just quietly unplugs. You completely stop anticipating the day. It is a 100% logical, psychological adaptation. Okay, moving to Section 4, the mechanics of time and how we perceive it. I really want you to think about this one because it's a mind-blowing concept that explains so much. It basically boils down to how we experience time. Psychologists split us into two camps, episodic thinkers and continuous thinkers. Episodic thinkers see their lives like a book, a series of distinct chapters with big, meaningful transitions. For them, a birthday is literally turning the page to a new chapter. But continuous thinkers, they experience life as one single, uninterrupted flow. If you're a continuous thinker, a birthday is literally just the Earth finishing another lap around the sun. It's just a totally arbitrary line in the sand that doesn't change your internal sense of self whatsoever. And because you are the exact same person today that you were yesterday, this continuous view of time creates a very specific vibe. That brings us to Section 5, the emotional texture, and how this actually feels in practice.
If everything we've talked about so far resonates with you, you probably experience a very specific mix of emotions. First, you probably go all out for other people's birthdays, right? You show up with massive warmth because you get that it's important to them. But second, when the spotlight turns to you, you get this mild, overstimulated discomfort. And third, there's often this really specific flavor of loneliness and guilt. You're sitting there watching the people you love try so incredibly hard to make you feel this explosive joy that you just can't manufacture organically, and then you feel guilty for not giving them the big dramatic reaction they're desperately craving.
It is absolutely crucial to recognize this. Trying to force yourself to feel what an occasion demands is exhausting work. Your lack of manufactured joy doesn't mean you're cold. It doesn't mean you don't appreciate the love and connection your people are offering. It just means that trying to stretch your actual, genuine emotions to match their sky-high expectations is incredibly heavy lifting.
Which leads us nicely to our final takeaway in Section 6, a quiet fullness and reframing indifference. Honestly, understanding all of this is incredibly freeing because it totally removes the stigma from how you feel. It proves you haven't failed at anything, and you certainly aren't broken. It's just a mismatch in how you process significance. Your internal system for feeling special just doesn't rely on a calendar. So maybe the truest thing you can say the next time someone asks why you don't care about your birthday is just, you feel like yourself every single day. You don't need a culturally mandated holiday to remind you that you exist or that you matter. You just have this profound, quiet fullness. And I'll leave you with this thought. If we all stopped relying on arbitrary dates to validate our worth, how much more present could we be for the quiet, everyday fullness of simply existing? Think about that for a bit, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.